Drew, I think Drew was right. The contrast was tremendous. Last week showed two directions for America. If you looked at the president from the State of the Union, one of the best I've ever heard, then you watched him get acquitted for life. You watched the jobs report. Many people predicted around 100,000, more than doubling. Shows a continued growth. Then we received the good news. Our U.S. forces took out a terrorist leader that had claimed responsibility for the attacks that killed 3 of our service members in Naval Air Station Pensacola, and the president produced a budget. Compare that to the Democrat majority inside the House. They've got trouble. They had trouble with turnout in Iowa. They have trouble with temper tantrums during a State of the Union. They had trouble with the truth, impeachment. And to quote the speaker, show me your budget, show me your values. I think the number one responsibility of a majority is to plan for the future. Once again, no budget. I wonder if the speaker will actually propose eliminating the budget committee because they have no work to do in this new majority of not producing a budget itself. Last night I was in New Hampshire with the president. I've watched Democrats spend millions of dollars trying to get a turnout. I watched the president produce one rally that produced much more than all of them combined. The enthusiasm there was tremendous. The number of people, packed house and outside, and others. Same as we saw within Iowa. Something people did not report from Iowa, that the turnout from the Democrats was a decrease in turnout, and the president set a new record for any president running for re-election on a turnout in Iowa. The enthusiasm gap within the Democratic Party is shown time and again. This president also, on the way up there, changed course. Gave a shorter rally than times before. Because what the president did instead was to go to Dover. We understand the cost of freedom, and this president understands it greatly. The president wanted to make sure, because this weekend our country lost 2 heroes. Sergeant First Class Gutierrez and Sergeant First Class Rodriguez. Last night the president, when he traveled to Dover, was with them, with the families. We continue to keep them in our prayers, but we understand what the cost of freedom is about. When you listen to Mac Thornberry and Steve Womack, they understand what it means to have the responsibility to protect our men and women, and understand to be able to plan within a budget to produce that, to keep the world free at the same time, to keep our troops. That's the fundamental difference between the Americas of this Republican Party and the Democrats. They won't even produce a budget to lay out a framework of what the world should look like. And I think that's why they're having a turnout decrease across the country. With that, I open it up for questions.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Leader?
Yes.
We haven't spoken to you since last Friday when the president dismissed Colonel Vindman and Ambassador Sondland. Your reaction to that, and also several senators in the wake of the verdict last week said that they had hoped that the president had learned a lesson. Some people said they thought he had learned a lesson. Do you think the president has learned a lesson from the impeachment saga?
No, I think there's a lot of lessons to learn. The first one, I'd go to the Intel Committee. That we have a chairman on the Intel Committee that read a transcript that was not true to the American public. We have a chairman of the Intel Committee who came before the American public and said he had a great fear that the administration was going to withhold a whistleblower from giving information. We learned later that this same chairman actually met with this whistleblower, and the only transcript that was withheld from the basement of those interviews was the 18th, the one about the Inspector General. All he needs to do is bring the committee together to vote to release that transcript. I wonder what that transcript would read. Could it possibly state out that the member who is the chairman of the Intel Committee could be a fact witness? Could it come forth that he met with this individual before, the only person in Congress who would know who the whistleblower is? Could he have just taken America through a second nightmare when we could have been focusing on so many other items? I think that's the biggest lesson for America to learn. And I think the Democratic Party, in their own civil war, based upon the speakers jumping to an impeachment, based upon following Adam Schiff, I think there's a great frustration. And when they talk about lessons, I believe that's the lesson.
Why was it appropriate for the president to take the action he did against Colonel Vindman
Well,
and Ambassador Sondland?
is it appropriate for the news to say he was fired when he was not? He was reassigned. I think that is appropriate. Yes.
I wanted to ask about some comments that the whip made on television last night about the Durham investigation. Mr. Scalise effectively said that having read classified evidence relating to these matters, he's convinced that people should go to jail. Your reaction to that? Have you read any classified evidence that convinces you people should go to jail?
You know, I did not see the interview. I was with the president. I do not know from that. I think there's a question for Steve, but I would leave it up to Durham to do his investigation and come back. I make no predetermined judgment. Let him find out the information, and let's have a level playing field, find out what happened. Yes.
Last question. The House GOP this morning approved Jim Jordan for Judiciary and Mark Meadows to be a ranking member on Oversight. Obviously, it's no secret they didn't always have a great relationship with you. Jordan ran against you once for Minority Leader. I just wanted to hear your comment on them being elevated to these new roles.
Well, in steering committee, I think made an excellent decision. And one thing you should know, yes, Jim Jordan and I had a competition to become leader. But I called Jim Jordan after that and asked him to become the ranking member on Oversight. I think Jim Jordan has done an excellent job. The one thing I would take from all this, you have a united Republican Party. We're united in the facts. We're united in fighting for the American public. Much different in a contrast to the Democratic Party, where they have their own civil war. First, internally inside this House, the number of Democrats who are fearful of losing their seats based upon the decisions the Speaker made about moving forward in impeachment and trusting Adam Schiff, who continued to lie to them themselves. Then you've got a civil war on the national pages that you see Bernie Sanders in the lead, and once again, the Democratic Party trying to steal the nomination from Bernie Sanders. Remember, just 4 years ago, the chair of the Democratic National Committee had to resign the night before their convention because truth came forward inside emails that they had rigged the system to make sure Bernie could not win. They changed the process, so there's no superdelegates on the first round. They thought they fixed Iowa. Interesting that the poll the night before that has always come forward could not come forward. It's interesting the night of the election they could not report any who was winning from a lead within that Bernie Sanders had. It's interesting that the Speaker of the House saying that she had to rush through an impeachment and then hold the papers, which gave an advantage to Joe Biden and Mayor Pete and a disadvantage to every senator who was running for president. Bernie Sanders being one of them and in the lead. It's interesting to me how divided the Democratic Party. Even if you talk to Democrats inside Congress, they will not say they are Democrats. They will claim that they are socialist Democrats, and this is the new movement within the party. And I would take from the aspect of what you saw within our steering committee to get to today, we are probably more unified as a party than we've ever been, and we're open to more people willing to join us, just as we had Jeff Van Drew join us from a Democrat to a Republican. I think that's probably one of the biggest signs you'll see that America is open and ready for a different direction inside the majority. I'll make you this one promise. If they would trust us with being the majority, we'd be a majority that gave you a budget, that wouldn't hide from the facts of the plans for the future. And we'd be a majority that would not use impeachment simply because of the animosities that you have for somebody else. We'd be a Congress that would work for the American public, not for their party. Thank you.